So the tricky thing when you have this situation like this pandemic is some figures are unfortunately always hard to see, hard to read. And you can see basically on the left part of that slide that the Filipino livelihood has been drastically affected by the COVID. I will keep on coming back to the Filipino aspect because GCash is very consumer centric. At the end of the day, we are working for the consumer, for the people. So you can see this number. It's already established, and you probably see this number or similar number in other presentation. Situation has been quite complex, particularly for the poorest of the population. Particularly this session of lockdown, where suddenly we had to completely rethink our behavior. However, the interesting part that we can see there is this kind of radical situation in a way lead people to reorganize themselves, the way they are consuming, the way they are living, the way they are transacting. One of the main examples is, of course, digitalization of the transaction. What used to be somehow as a nice to have became for a lot of people a must have. At some point, you cannot go out, you cannot use cash, and you still need to transact. Just one example among others. And GCash has been actually leading in that transformation all over the country. Next slide, please. So just a couple of figures about GCash. Roughly, we are at 48 million users in the Philippines. If my figures are correct, we are 60% of the adults in the Philippines have actually a GCash account. We have 3 million merchant and social seller, and if you aggregate everything, including what we call the key account, we are actually now close to 3.8 million social seller. One of the interesting number is the daily transaction, meaning nowadays people are transacting average 2 to 3 times a day with GCash. Interesting data that you don't necessarily see here. We are comparing ourselves with the other app on the market through a third-party established partner, which is App Annie. It's a standard worldwide. And interesting to note that in Philippines, actually, GCash is the third app, just after Shopee and Lazada, but in front of Spotify, in front of Netflix, in front of Instagram, in front of all these apps. So you can see that from what was initially a digital fintech app, it clearly gets inside the daily partner, the daily companion of the Filipino in their financial journey. One of the figures also that can give some idea in terms of hyper growth of the system. Last year, we closed our GTV, meaning the volume of business who passed through the system, around 1 billion peso. 1 billion peso was actually more than the 3 previous years consolidated. This year, we already know that we're going to break the 3 billion peso GTV. That gives an idea of the appetite of the consumer. And very interesting, it's not limited to the basic payment transaction. Of course, this use case is one of the leading one, and we keep on pushing new opportunity, diversity of use case for anybody who transact offline, online, over the counter in any circumstances. But we also push everything which fit transfer of funds from outside, inside the wallet, from outside, from domestic remittance, from international to the Philippines. All these use cases exploded. You can see the peak daily transaction who reached 12 million. Then, based on what I was telling you earlier, we saw an opportunity also to develop additional service to support the Filipino. So now there is a whole gap of digital lifestyle services that we are proposing now in the service, from government, smart city, transportation. I mean, everything you can imagine is there. And one of the products that really exploded during this pandemic is the financial services. We saw there a huge opportunity for us to help people, and we developed multiple services connected to credit, financial services, to loan, to insurance, even the capacity for people to invest, which is, as you can imagine, something that was not initially part of their thought process. Next slide, please. Next, please. So, as I was mentioning earlier, one of the objectives of GCash was how can we help as fast as possible people to keep on transacting, whether because their business is affected, whether because they lose their job and they need a new way to build themselves a livelihood. So that was one of the peak of our action, developing solutions for people to be able to develop a new form of livelihood. So whether it was creating new form of payment through P2P, what we call PQR also, whether it's creating a center for the community where everybody can put money in the wallet and have access to the flow of transaction. We also developed new form of remittance. Recently, we launched GCash Padala, a domestic system of remittance, so everybody can send money from a GCash wallet to even a non-GCash wallet. That was really our #1 priority. Next, please. One of the interesting facts, and I think that says a lot about also how fintech is one of the sector where government, public sector, and private sector are really successful working hand in hand, was the ayuda distribution. So the government actually choose a wallet partner to distribute, and GCash was the leading wallet, and we were able to distribute more than 16 billion of peso to 2 million Filipino. I think the interesting message here is they didn't choose a traditional bank. They didn't choose a pawn shop or this kind of community services. They send a very strong signal by saying, we're going to push tech, we're going to push financial inclusion, we're going to push now that road because we see that's the road of the future. And that, I think, was a very strong signal sent by the government. Next, and the LGU, of course. We saw also a lot of spontaneous initiatives, whether organized by LGU, by group of people, a form of donation, even during the typhoon period. It just popped up where they were looking for a way to immediately solve the solution. There was an emergency factor, and that's where GCash was able also to show its versatility. Next slide. Last but not least, we are stuck at home in a way, or our mobility is reduced, but we still have to live, we still have to interact, and we still want to experience moment with our close friend. So we saw also digitalization of a lot of, I would say, standard moment in the friend, with the family or whatever, whether it's the Chinese New Year and the red envelope, the Valentine's Day, the Christmas. We saw actually a huge boost of this kind of this kind of situation, and we developed a lot of service connected to that. All of that, again, was to help people to strive during this pandemic situation. Next slide. So it's still stuck in our mindset that at the end of the day, our main objective is to providing a finance solution for all. At some point, that's the reason why GCash exists. So recently, following what's happening, we saw a lot of initiatives coming, and we surf on it, build on top of it, whether it's about the wet market, the palenque, the toda, some riders. There is a lot, I mean, a lot of daily feedback coming sent to us of fishermen literally transacting on the beach with their fish and the consumer. We are now launching our own initiative around the Sari Sari store. The objective is to transform this Sari Sari in financial community hub. We call that GCash Po, GCash Pera Outlet. We have very, very high objective for next year on that one. One of the service was expected by a lot of people was the GCash Padala. So we decided to provide the cheapest service of the market in terms of domestic remittance, which was deliberately a service we wanted to provide to everyone. And on top of that, we saw an opportunity to keep on motivating people to push forward and Jiparin. It was important for us that we are not only here to provide financial solution, but also to support the spirit and the mindset of everyone in these hard times. Next slide. So how to know what will be the new normal, how to imagine where are we going. What we see for sure is the retention is very important, meaning some people adopt GCash, whatever is the reason, including maybe the lockdown, but we see that the retention is extremely high. So we saw that it could be the opportunity of a technological leapfrog where people, once they adapt it, they stick to it. They will not leave it again. At least that's the way we are reading our data and our experience. Now, if we have to select 3 key pillars about the learning and the lesson of the pandemic, I would say first is accessibility. Definitely the advantage of digital is to be the great equalizer. Suddenly everybody have access to a wide network of partners, a wide network of people who transact with. As I was mentioning earlier, 38 million start to represent a significant market, but most important, access to extra income and livelihood opportunity. That's something that we want to insist. The second point is education. At some point, financial inclusion is good, as long as people are aware on how they can take advantage of financial inclusion, how it can change their life, how it can bring them plus, which is why financial literacy is a key thing for us. We developed a program with LGU or with the government to educate people, to help them, explain to them how to save, how to grow, how to protect their wealth. And this is the reason why all these products, GSave, GInvest, GInsert, GCredit, etc., are on the market. We are planning to launch more and more products with very, very strong flexibility. And last but not least, the pervasiveness. So the idea is the only way for us collectively to build something new is to do it together. So we need to move from a simple financial inclusion for all to all together building this financial inclusion, meaning at some point, we valued collaboration more than competition. The situation is expected that from us. So our position is definitely to provide a platform and encourage every player to join us, whether it's a public partner or a private partner, and helps everyone, helps all the fellow Filipino to build a new normal. Thank you.